there's a tremendous amount of ignorance when it comes to drugs, drug consumption. What is a drug? I mean, how many times have you seen a person with a beer in their hand smoking a cigarette saying they don't do drugs? It is so fucking stupid, but it's so common. There's this very, very, very common aspect of being a person, which is this desire to change your mental state.
Joe Rogan has just slammed Conor Benn for failing another drug test ahead of his fight with Chris Eubank Jr. As of April 2025, British welterweight boxer Conor Benn is once again under scrutiny following a failed drug test. The test, conducted by the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, revealed the presence of clomiphene, a banned substance known to elevate testosterone levels in men. This development casts a shadow over his upcoming bout with Chris Eubank Jr., scheduled for April 26th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Watched it. First of all, I think Eubank done it to make a point with the egg, because we all know what happened with the egg. Conor ate eggs that were tainted, allegedly, and they therefore his drug test, he failed.
Failing the drug test,
Ben previously faced similar allegations in 2022 when he tested positive for clomiphene ahead of a fight with Eubank Jr. At that time, he attributed the results to a high consumption of eggs, an explanation that the World Boxing Council accepted, allowing him to return to their rankings. However, the British Boxing Board of Control and UK Anti-Doping maintained their investigations, leading to a suspension that was eventually lifted in July 2023.
Conor Benn has tested positive for the use of Clomid. For those of you that don't know what it is and what it does, I'm going to tell you. So Clomid is used as a fertility drug for women. However, it's often used as a PCT by people who take steroids as well. PCT stands for post-cycle therapy, so it helps to offset the negative effects of steroids, such as low testosterone, gyno, and water retention. So taking Clomid can help to increase your testosterone levels, reduce the likelihood of getting gyno, and reduce the amount of water weight that you have. It's such a shame because I was really looking forward to this fight, but steroids are used in all sports by a lot more people than you think.
Going into the fight with Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn's legitimacy faces serious doubt due to his history with failed drug tests. Critics question whether he deserves to be in the ring, viewing his past infractions as a stain on his career. However, Gareth A. Davies weighed in the situation and said Chris Eubank Jr. has played a very smart game leading up to the fight. He says Eubank focused on the drug cheat angle and made the public turn against Conor Benn. Even though the authorities said Eubank was wrong at times, most fans are on his side. In press conferences, Eubank stayed cool, calm, and sharp, while Benn came across as emotional. Davies thinks this gave Eubank the upper hand before they even stepped into the ring.
Eubank's played a very smart game, hasn't he?
He's been incredible.
He's turned the world. Drug cheat has been his theme, hasn't it?
Yeah.
He's turned the world against Conor Benn. He's Eggate, most people are on his side, even though the authorities say he was wrong.
Yeah.
He owned Eddie Hearn in the press conferences, cool, calm, and calculated. Conor Benn's incredibly emotional.
He also shared his view on how the fight might go. According to Davies, Conor Benn will likely come out fast and aggressive. He believes Benn is dangerous in the early rounds, but if Eubank survives the early attack, the fight could swing in his favor. Davies sees Eubank as the favorite the longer the match goes. Still, he admits Benn's strong presence and body language make the opening rounds risky.
We expect Conor Benn to come out hard, fast, aggressive, and ferocious. It's a fight of two halves. I agree with a lot of what people have said. Conor Benn's dangerous early on. If Chris Eubank weathers the storm, it becomes his fight the later the fight goes. I still see Chris Eubank as a fairly big favourite, but there's something about the aura of Conor Benn, about his body language, about what he wants to do, about how convincing he is, that you just don't want to blink in those first few rounds.
Moreover, on the other hand, Conor Benn confidently stated that he wasn't a bad guy, but that Chris Eubank Jr. often pushed his buttons. He admitted that Eubank's behavior irritated him to the point where he couldn't help but react, calling him out on what he saw as childish antics. Benn emphasized that his anger wasn't fake or for show. It came from real frustration. He believes Eubank knows how to get under people's skin and uses it to his advantage, but insists that won't work once the bell rings.
Who's more of a bad guy, yourself or Chris?
I'm not a bad guy. No. Joe was funny.
That's what I get. I get that you're not a bad guy.
I'm not a bad guy.
But when you see Chris, you tend to get really annoyed, and I just think, what's up with you? What is it you don't like?
Why do I get
Yeah,
him?
like you're pissed.
No, everyone gets him.
And you're not a bad guy.
I'm definitely not a bad guy. I'm not how, I don't know what happens but I'm definitely misunderstood. I am definitely misunderstood. Because I'm not a bad guy. At all.
Tony Bellew spoke about the possible outcome of a fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., saying it would have been smarter for both to face each other before chasing separate world titles. He felt their team should have pushed for that match first, as title opportunities would still come later. Bellew pointed out that Eubank Jr. has more on the line, but Benn's fast, aggressive style could give him the upper hand early. In his view, Benn's best shot at winning is within the first 6 rounds, before Eubank starts to apply pressure.
And you know, listen, these two, let's be brutally honest, these two had the opportunity to face for a world title. Conor could have fought Barrios, and Eubank Jr. could have fought Lara. And if the clever people around them have just gone to them, listen, hey, hold your jets here. This is ridiculous. Why do you want to go and fight for a world title? And you could get beat. You could lose, get beat up,
right,
really bad. And let me tell you, them world titles will still be there after they've faced each other, depending on how they lose, to be honest. I mean, like I said, there's so much more to lose for Eubank Jr. than there is for Conor. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the only reason Eubank Jr. will win is because of size, because it's not. This is a fight, in my opinion, of 2 halves. The first 6 rounds will belong to Conor Benn. He will not be able to keep Conor Benn off for 6 rounds. If he is able to absorb what Conor Benn is able to dish out for 6 rounds, the fight then turns in his favour, because the second 6, that's when size does come into play.
Bellew also commented on Eubank Jr.'s style, noting he's more of a scrapper than a pure boxer. While not the most technical, Eubank's physical strength and durability could shift the fight in his favor after the early rounds. If he can survive Benn's initial burst, Bellew sees Eubank gradually taking over, using his size and power to wear Benn down and dominate the second half of the fight.
I don't think Chris Eubank Jr. is the best boxer. I actually think he's a better fighter than he is a boxer. Technically, he's not very good. I don't know where he gets off on thinking he's the second coming of Roy Jones Jr., because he's not. And as for Conor, he knows what he is. He goes in and he lets his hands go. And he's reckless and he's wild and he can be explosive and dynamic. All of them things he's going to need in this fight, Chris Eubank Jr. And he's going to need a little bit more as well. He's going to have to be rough, rugged, and he's not going to be able to stop and let up. I think his only chance is winning in the first 6 rounds, if I'm being totally honest. And I think Eubank really comes into play after 6 rounds. I think that's when, if he can wear him down and get rid of him in the boxing.
Eddie Hearn praised Conor Benn's focus and preparation ahead of the fight, saying he's never seen him this calm and locked in. Hearn highlighted how Benn has isolated himself from distractions and trained with intense dedication. He's been sparring with top light heavyweights like Bruno Serre and William Skull, and according to Hearn, Benn is in the best shape of his career. Hearn added that Benn looks incredible in camp and is fully prepared to make a statement at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on April 26th.
He's so cool. I've never seen him prepared like this before. He's taken himself away from everything. He's been training like a beast. He's in the shape of his life, sparring Bruno Serre, sparring William Skull, all these top light heavyweights. He is looking sensational, and he's ready to explode at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on April 26th.
Carl Frampton shared his view that Chris Eubank Jr. is the frontrunner heading into the bout, though he stressed the weight cut could be a major factor. He explained that the 10-pound rehydration limit could be tough on Eubank Jr., especially since he's been fighting closer to middleweight. Frampton addressed past criticism about weight class confusion, clarifying that Eubank had been competing at 160 pounds, not 168. He added that it's common for fighters to move up in weight as they get older, not down, and said he'd hold off on a full prediction until seeing how Eubank looks at the weigh-in.
I think Eubank is the favourite, and a lot of it depends on how he makes a weight and what he looks like on the scales, and the 10-pound rehydration clause is going to be difficult for him. I've been kind of criticised a wee bit because I've been saying he's been boxing at 168. He hasn't. He's been boxing at 160, but the point I was trying to make was he has boxed at 168. And as you get older, you normally go up the weight, you don't come down the weight. So he's, it's hurting him now to do 160. And I need to see what he looked like on a scale before I make a prediction.
Richie Woodhall also gave his take, saying the matchup is exciting, but he leans toward Eubank Jr. as the likely winner due to his natural size. He pointed out that Conor Benn is coming up from welterweight, which could put him at a disadvantage physically. Woodhall believes Eubank's larger frame could play a big role in the outcome. Still, he noted that the long-standing rivalry between their families and the contrasting styles of the fighters could make this a thrilling and dramatic fight.
I think it's a good fight. I just think
think that Eubank's probably naturally the bigger man, and is probably the favourite. I think Conor Benn, you know, he's more or less a welterweight. He's the one that's really stepping up in weight, isn't he? So I think it'll be tougher for him than it will be for Eubank. I think Eubank's a slight favourite. It's a great fight. Obviously, their fathers, all the history, we all know about it. And I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be really explosive. But I'd probably, Eubank, I think, is a favourite just because he's naturally the bigger man. But it's got the makings of a cracking fight.
Amir Khan previously gave his prediction for the contest, but has now done a 180 on who he's picking to win. Speaking with Froch on Fighting, Khan said, he stated, "I was saying Conor was going to win a couple of weeks ago. I thought that he was more of the aggressor, but then looking at the size difference and realizing he's going up a weight, not up one, but maybe 2 weights. These weights are made for a purpose, and even though I went up and fought Canelo, I know the difference." He added, "But then again, Chris Eubank is no Canelo, but I still feel that Eubank has a lot more weight, more power, more strength, and the height and the size over Conor Benn. I've got him winning that fight now." Ricky Hatton acknowledged that many are favoring Chris Eubank Jr. to win against Conor Benn, and he understands why. Eubank has faced top-tier competition, including fighters like Billy Joe Saunders in his weight class, while Conor has yet to fight anyone with that level of experience. Additionally, Conor's move up 2 weight classes presents a major challenge. However, Hatton believes Conor's fierce determination, his self-confidence, and the same fighting spirit his father, Nigel Benn, possessed could be a game changer in the fight. Hatton feels Conor's sheer willpower might just give him the edge over Eubank.
A lot of people are favouring, seems lately at the minute, favouring Eubank, aren't they? And I get why they've done it, because I mean, let's have it right. Conor's not boxed anyone near Chris's potential. And when you think who Chris has beaten Billy Joe Saunders, you know, at that level, I mean, that's at his own weight. So to jump up 2 weights and to fight someone like Chris, it is a massive ask. But I'm quite, you know, I'm quite close to, you know, to Nigel and Conor, and I think in his last couple of fights he's not quite as explosive as he previously has done. But you know, in fact, that he's not boiling down, he's moving up in weight, and then Chris has to boil down that little bit extra. That'll help Conor.
Ricky also highlighted Eubank's ongoing struggles with weight cuts, noting it could become an issue once again. He reminded everyone that the fight between Conor and Chris had already been postponed, and when Eubank faced Liam Williams, his weight troubles affected his performance, resulting in a knockout loss. Hatton believes if Eubank continues to have weight-cutting difficulties, it could negatively affect his performance in this fight, providing Conor with a better chance to secure the win.
But I just know because I know him personally, the desire and the self-belief and the drive that he has. You know, he has this real will not be denied type of drive, like his dad, you know, to be honest with you. And really I'm thinking that might just, and Chris has been, you know, stopped. He's boiling down in weight. Last time he, don't forget the fight with Conor fell through, and then he ended up, you know, he was boiling himself down, and then he fought Liam, and I think that's why he got knocked out. Because he was boiling himself down, which is what he's doing again. So I'm going to go with my mate Conor. Yeah.
Roy Jones Jr. shared his thoughts on the highly anticipated fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., calling it an exciting matchup. He recognized that Eubank has the size advantage, but Benn's impressive punching power gives him a real opportunity to make a difference. Jones predicted Eubank would likely win, believing he would outbox and outmaneuver Benn. However, he warned that Eubank needs to remain strategic in the early rounds, as Benn's power could turn the fight in an instant.
I think it's going to be a very good fight. You know, Conor has punching power chances. Chris is the bigger guy, so you give Chris the advantage going in because he's a bigger guy, but Conor does have exceptional punching power, so it's going to be a great fight. I think Chris should win the fight. I think Chris should outbox him, outsmart him, but he will have to be smart early because Conor is a great puncher.
Hamza Shiraz predicted Conor Benn would beat Eubank Jr., but personally hoped for an Eubank victory. Shiraz explained that if Eubank won, it could create a future opportunity for them to fight, which he views as a significant chance. He also mentioned that if he wins the WBC title, Eubank would be his preferred opponent for his first defense. With his time at 160 pounds limited, Shiraz emphasized that his focus isn't just on holding titles, but on securing the biggest possible matchup.
I think Conor Benn beats Eubank, but I kind of need Eubank to win. Do you know what I mean? For myself, from a selfish perspective, I need him to win.
Do you want to fight him?
Yeah, exactly.
Would it be the first defence if you win that, or when you win that WBC title? Is that someone that you would choose?
100%, 100%. As long as obviously everyone's okay with it, it'd be that. I mean, why not? It'd be the biggest fight for me next in boxing, and I haven't got long left in the 160-pound division, so it's not me going on about taking certain defenses. It's all about just fighting the big fight.
Tommy Welch highlighted Chris Eubank Jr.'s ability to box when necessary, suggesting he may need to use that skill in this fight. While Eubank loves a brawl, both he and Conor Benn are natural fighters, and Welch expects them to go after each other with intensity. He believes the fight will turn into a rare all-out war, especially given their genuine dislike for each other, making it a thrilling showdown he wouldn't miss.
Do you know, the nice thing with Chris is that he can box as well. Like, he can box as well, and he might have to do that in this fight. You know, if he sits in, but he loves to fight. Do you know what I mean? Both of these guys love to fight. Conor is a fighter. They're going to come and smash heads to each other, and they're going to stick a war on like we haven't seen for a long while, you know, between two guys that generally dislike each other. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be a fantastic fight. I wouldn't miss it. Do you know what I mean?
Chisora will no doubt be one of the tens of thousands in attendance when Eubank Jr. and Benn finally settle a score that dates back over 2.5 years. However, he admitted he believes whoever is on the wrong end of the result will leave in an ambulance. He stated, "I love both fighters, so I'm not gonna say who's gonna win because I believe the loser will leave in an ambulance. I just want them to come out healthy and safe." Mark Tibbs sees the fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. as a true 50-50 contest, recognizing strengths and weaknesses on both sides. He believes Benn's relentless aggression could pose serious problems for Eubank, but at the same time, Eubank's experience against higher level opponents gives him an advantage. However, Tibbs pointed out that Eubank's inactivity and age might work against him, ultimately suggesting that the way the fight plays out could favor Benn.
Well, I know what, you know, fights are won and lost on the scales. I know what he can do when you're tight for weight. I know how difficult it is when you're tight for weight, and unless you're around both of them, listen, there's pluses, there's pros and cons in that, and it really is such a 50-50. It really is. I mean, the ferocity of Conor Benn is could be overwhelming for Eubank, but Eubank, listen, he's fought the better opposition in his career. But I think he's not the most active of guys either, and he's getting on a little bit. It's a 50-50, man. But yeah, I think the weight will suit Conor Benn, and therefore I'll give him the edge. Yeah.
Shakur Stevenson, who has spent time in the ring sparring with Conor Benn, offered his perspective on the upcoming clash. He praised Benn's grit and relentless drive, but pointed out that Chris Eubank Jr. is the more complete and technically sound fighter. Stevenson believes Eubank's skill set is often overlooked and expects the fight to be tougher than many anticipate. Despite favoring Eubank's boxing ability, Stevenson is backing Benn, respecting his courage in jumping up 2 weight divisions to take on such a difficult challenge.
Chris Eubank fight over in the UK. Conor Benn and Eubank, both pretty big names, but Conor going up 2 weight divisions really to take that fight. You're smiling. So what's your take on that one?
I'm just smiling because like I met Conor Benn, like he a cool ass dude.
He is.
He's very cool. Like everybody talk about how mean he is, but like every time I ran into him, he was always like a really cool dude. He always showed me like good energy. But truthfully, with that fight, I think that's a hard task just because of Chris Eubank. He's like a guy with subtle boxing skills. Like you ain't really noticing how like good he is, but he's a pretty good fighter. So I think it's a hard task. Good luck to Conor. I can't really give you an answer on how the fight will go, but I'm rooting for Conor.
Johnny Nelson, who once supported Conor Benn, has now shifted his prediction in favor of Chris Eubank Jr. He credits Eubank's regular appearances in the ring as a key advantage, keeping him sharp and prepared. Although Nelson wasn't overly impressed with Eubank's last showing, he believes that staying active has helped maintain his edge. He admitted that if Benn's career had continued without disruption, he would have backed him, given how quickly Benn was rising. But after a 15-month layoff, Nelson feels the time away has stalled Benn's momentum, giving Eubank the upper hand.
I'd have said Conor Benn, so I'd have to lean towards Chris. For what reason? because his last fight, I wasn't impressed, but he's been more active, he's been busier, and so therefore you've got to lean towards. I would lean towards Chris for that reason. If Conor's career had carried on the way it carried on, then I'd say Conor, because I think he was one of the fastest developing fighters I'd ever seen in the UK at that particular time. So I just think that timeout, I think we've lost an important period in Conor's development as a fighter.
However, Nigel Benn believes his son is a much better fighter than he was, and he expects Conor to end things quickly against Eubank Jr. I don't see it going past 4 rounds. If Liam Smith gave Eubank Jr. the problem that he did in the first fight in January 2023, that's Liam Smith. He don't punch like Conor. He does not punch like Conor. In addition to his son's punching power, Nigel Benn said Conor's overall boxing ability far outstrips his own, which is why he believes there will be a different outcome on April 26th than there was in his own famous battles with Eubank. I'm more confident in this fight than I was with me and Chris Sr., he said. I just think that Conor's just gonna go out there and just give it to him, put it on him, and I know he would do that. I'm 100% confident in Conor doing that. He further added, I'm so relaxed, so sure I know what my son can do. He's actually a much better fighter than me. I could never box like Conor. I would just go in and have a bang. I just wanted to have a war, but Conor's got all of it in his locker, every single thing. Michael Watson shared his admiration for both Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., calling them skilled fighters and wishing them success. When asked to choose a winner, he chose to stay neutral, saying he couldn't favor one over the other. Watson added that he's looking forward to the fight and expects it to be an exciting event.
The pair of them, they're my boys. They call me Uncle Michael. In due respect, that's what they call me. It's amazing how things work out. They're 2 talented boys, and we support them all the best. That's all I can do. Come from Uncle Michael.
Who do you think wins?
It should be a great fight. I can't pick a favourite.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say that.
I am on neutral terms.
You'll be watching it on TV.
I certainly will be. It should be a great fight.
Barry McGuigan favors Conor Benn, believing Chris Eubank Jr.'s chin has been compromised since his knockout loss to Liam Smith. He pointed out that while Eubank once had a great chin, he hasn't looked the same since. McGuigan sees Benn as the faster, more explosive puncher, even stronger than Smith, which could give him the edge. However, he acknowledged that Eubank's size could still play a role, but he ultimately leans toward Benn despite Eubank's toughness.
I think it's a great fight. I would pick Benn at the minute simply because Eubank was cracked by Liam Smith, and he was never cracked before, and it's a summary for me. He had a great chin up to then, and then he was knocked out, and it's never quite the same again. I think Benn is a more explosive fighter than Liam Smith. He's faster. He punches hard, but then good big one will always beat a good little one, all those cliches. But I just think I would give Benn the edge. But Eubank's tough.
So what are your thoughts on this? Share your thoughts in the comments section and make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.